Leaving already?
I think this cove suits you best, Edward. Better than that costume does.
Oh, come on now. We're pirates, kid. We take as we please and become who we like. Self-made men.
But that look ain't you. It's not who you are.
Who am I then?
Hard to tell some days. All I know is you like dangerous prizes.
Like the observatory. I think you know more about that than you let on in Nassau.
You noticed that, did you? Meet me at 20 degrees, 3 minutes latitude just off the coast of Yucatan. I'll have something to show you there in a few weeks' time.
Alrighty, here we go. Fucking fuck. Fuckity fuck. 1, 2, 3, 4, fuck me. Okay, here we go. I have way too many of these Injustice cards. Alrighty, here we go. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was originally released worldwide October 2013 for last-gen systems like PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the Wii U. 1 month later, in November, it was released on current-gen systems like the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. That makes this game about 4 to 5 years old, and boy does it show. Even though it says 4 in the title, just, keep in mind it's like the 6th main entry to the series, and it's not really a sequel to the third game because it takes place before, so when you go in the Animus, you obviously go back into the past. In Assassin's Creed 3, you're playing during the American Civil War. In this game, you are playing before the American Civil War, so it's not really a direct continuation from Assassin's Creed 3 unless you're counting the modern day storyline, but no one does because it sucked. Anyways, in this game you play as you play as the grandfather to the main character that you play as in Assassin's Creed 3. That's what I mean, it doesn't really. Anyways, I was actually at the E3 when they announced this game, and my first thought when I saw the huge banner at the LA Convention Center was basically what a lot of people thought, people love the boat segments in Assassin's Creed 3, and now they've made a whole game out of it. Despite my affection for the series up to this point, I didn't actually purchase it immediately. I waited for a while, and I got it digitally, and, then the season passed when it was on sale. So I think I got the game for about $40, and then, a couple of months down the road, it was on sale. The season pass was on sale for $10, so I bought that as well. I gotta admit that the first time I played this, I enjoyed my time with it. However, after that, I attempted to play it. After I tried to play it again, I honestly couldn't. I couldn't finish it. And now that I played it for the third time, it's not hard to see why, basically. The score I'm giving Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is a 5.5 out of 10. So let's see why I gave it such a low score.
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
No, there's no need to bother, really.
Karina!
I have no time to chat.
The biggest reason of why this game got such a low score for me is simply this. Black Flag it's the definition of an unpolished game. If Ride to Hell Retribution is the definition of a broken game, then Black Flag is the definition of an unpolished game. Please note the difference between the two. Unpolished means that with a little bit more time, it would have been a way better game. Broken just means exactly what broken means. It's just there was no way you could have fixed it. That's it. It doesn't matter how much more time you had with it. It was just broken from the very beginning. Black Flag just has an insane number of visual bugs, audio bugs, and just bugs related to the controls, and they all could have just used a lot more time. Some things I do have to mention though is that keep in mind that this is the first Assassin's Creed game to hit the next gen, after basically spending all these years on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 generation. So we also have to keep that in mind. And also keep in mind that this game is a port Just like Wolfenstein, The New Order, which also had its fair share of problems, having to develop a game for a bunch of systems, it has its drawbacks. Also keep in mind that at this point, the Assassin's Creed series was a yearly thing like Call of Duty. So maybe developers aren't as much to blame as maybe the money men that were in charge. Maybe they're like, oh, we got to get this fucking game out and that's it. And the developers, maybe they have no fault. They're like, fuck, we got to listen to these guys. They're the ones, signing our checks. So, but I don't know. I wasn't there. It's just something to keep in mind while I'm talking about this kind of shit. It's not just technically a mess. The writing is too. It feels like it was rushed. I had a lot of moments where I would wonder if this is just a pirate story with the assassin and Templar rivalry just shoved in there. When it's pirate related, it feels pretty natural. And then, they put in the assassin and Templar stuff, and that's when it starts to feel really off.
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
No, there's no need to bother, really. I have no time to chat.
The main character of this game is Edward Kenway. He's fucking ugly. Edward Kenway was a farmhand living with his woman back in Who Gives a Shitville, and like a lot of stories, he wants more. His wife tells him that, that the money he was making at the farm was enough, and he argued no, he didn't want to live paycheck to paycheck, while his boss got rich. Eventually, we jump to the near future where Edward Kenway is now a pirate, and he pirates really well with his pirate buddies. And after a big fuck up, he swims ashore along with another survivor by the name of Duncan Walpole. He kills Duncan and he takes his outfit. In putting on the new outfit, he sees a note that Duncan was about to deliver something that would make him a lot of money. As a pirate in search for money, Kenway's like, fuck yeah, I'll just pretend to be Duncan Walpole and I'll deliver the goods. Turns out that Duncan Walpole is an assassin that betrayed the order and was willing to switch sides to work with the Templars. In looking for money, basically Kenway falls dick first into a huge assassin-Templar conflict in which both sides are looking for a place called the Observatory. So to begin with, he's not even an assassin, and that's okay. This is sort of an outside looking in kind of thing, and that's a nice little way of mixing things up. In fact, his lack of grace is actually kind of welcomed here. Altair, Ezio, and I apologize for this, Ratonaketon, I think that's how you say it, Ratonaketon. They all had this certain grace to them in their moves. Kenway is a pirate first before anything else, and he moves like one. He fights without grace and like a complete savage. The signature aerial assassination is there, but his fighting style is far more brutal than his predecessors ever were. And in a weird way, that last statement kind of explains the problem the story has. The graceful aerial assassination by Kenway contrasts with his brutal hand-to-hand combat. The story is exactly like that. In the game, there's a place called Nassau, and it's basically a safe haven for pirates. As someone who isn't actually an assassin, Kenway has duties to keep his pirate lifestyle intact, such as steal from the English and Spanish fleets for resources and defenses, either for himself or to help protect Nassau. In these missions, the game feels right. I'm a pirate doing his pirate thing. It feels right. In between those missions, though, Kenway has these assassin-related missions, and they don't feel really natural. Sometimes it feels like they just shoehorn the whole Assassin-Templar conflict into this game. This game could have easily been a pirate simulator with a different name. My point is that it's easy for the story to get wishy-washy. If someone's going to fall dick first into a conflict, it shouldn't feel so forced sometimes. In addition to all this, his story commits the same error as Ezio Auditore, in that his character does a complete 180. Towards the end of the game, he becomes this super noble dude who suddenly cares about the world he lives in. Between main missions, there are months and years passing, but it's done without much thought or consideration that the characters need to show their transformations as well. You can't just be like, I'm a fucking pirate, I don't give a shit, and all of a sudden, oh no, I gotta, protect the world from people like you. It's just, what the fuck just happened?
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
No, there's no need to bother, really. I have no time to chat.
Assassin's Creed games are Assassin's Creed. There we go. There's an S in there. Assassin's Creed games are known for their memorable protagonists and antagonists. Everybody knows about OG Altair, and everybody remembers Al-Mualim. For sure, everybody knows fuckboy crybaby Ezio and his fight against the fucking Pope. The fucking Pope, man. And a lot of people didn't really like Ratonaketan. But I definitely found him memorable. Considering he's my favorite assassin to date, I definitely found him fucking memorable. Edward Kenway? He's not that memorable. In fact, the most memorable thing about him is probably his last name. And that's probably because of the third game. So not even because of him. I feel like he's riding the coattails. Sure, he's a pirate, and sure, he's not really an assassin. However, you know, by making a pirate the protagonist, you kind of put yourself in a cage. Because everybody knows that pirates were assholes, but by making him the hero of your story, you can't really let him be asshole. You can't let him be an asshole all the time, because otherwise, how else are people gonna feel for your character, for your protagonist? I don't know, man. It just feels like a pirate was known for fucking pillaging and murdering, stealing, raping, drinking, fighting. I mean, what happens when you basically take all that away besides the stealing and the fighting? You essentially just get a thief. That's all it is. You get a common thief, and that's all Edward ends up being. He's just a common thief. He's just a thief looking for money for his honey. I don't really find that particularly memorable, let alone interesting. There are other characters on his journey, like Blackbeard, but if the main character can't shine brightly, it's difficult for side characters to. The only reason I even just mentioned Blackbeard was because of common knowledge and nothing else. He's got a big bow in this game. Ooh. The villains are a bunch of generic Templars with Spanish accents and English accents. That's basically it. Yeah, I tend to have a good memory with video games, and for the life of me, besides the main character, I never once thought about anyone else in this game after I beat it.
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
No, there's no need to bother, really. I have no time to chat.
Visually, the game has not aged well. Again, this could be because it was a port, or it could be because the team just didn't have enough time to clean it up. Maybe they just didn't want to. I don't know. But the characters, they look like ghouls, with the exception of like one character who looked like a human being. Ubisoft's open world games seem to have a similar problem, but this one shows it the most, in my most recent experience. It's that the assets load in too slowly. You will actually see things appear from thin air way too many times in this game. Sometimes whole assets could even appear from the world. Disappear from the world. Like I would sail on Kenway's boat, and I would just see ships in the distance just literally just disappear. They don't sink. It's just gone. It's gone. It's just transported to another dimension. And if you think it's just the world around you, like, oh, I'm seeing these things, but it's not really affecting me, you'd be mistaken. Sometimes it'll affect your gameplay. In my very first playthrough, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I do have a video clip of that on my channel. I think it's like gameplay without commentary. But in my very first playthrough, I got stuck inside a boat, watching my pirates, my crew, fighting like Spanish soldiers or something, and they were fighting above me on deck. I literally fell into the boat, and being inside the boat should not be accessible. And then after a few minutes, I just fell into like a black void or something. It was really fucking bad.
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
No, there's no need to bother, really. I have no time to chat.
Shit! Time to fly! Why always me? Shit! Time to fly! Surrender!
Black Flag has a lot of problems, and audio is one of them. You will get into a lot of fights in this game, and when you do, you'll notice that the audio will desynchronize almost every single time. And I'm not saying that lightly. You will hear swords clashing like seconds after they actually did, or even before they actually do. You'll hear your fists hitting someone before they actually make contact. The same with stabbings, and sometimes the finishing blow will just be completely mute. You're hearing all this ching ching pa pa, and then the finishing like blow is just totally silent. One of the best things about Assassin's Creed is the fighting. You know, you're fighting off a bunch of soldiers with all these kick-ass counters and finishing moves. So I'm really fucking disappointed that they couldn't get the audio right, because audio is really important in fights. Like, just imagine a Rocky movie, or Raging... what's that fucking movie with Robert De Niro where he gets all fat and ugly? Raging Bull? Bull Raging? The Bull Raged? Like, just imagine one of those boxing movies and just picture the fight. Picture that fight scene in your head, and just imagine that the punches were not synced up. It would just take away from the impact that fight has.
Raising him up, Phil. I don't know. Can't even get his gloves up to protect him.
The soundtrack isn't as good as previous titles either. However, the shanties are worthy of praise. You're going to spend a lot of time out in the open sea, and the shanties your crew sings are actually pretty fun and catchy, so I gotta give them that. Also, the voice acting is definitely not bad. They all sound like what they should.
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
No, there's no need to bother, really. I have no time to chat.
I've joked about Ubisoft having a lot of collectibles in other reviews, but this one takes the fucking cake. It doesn't take the cake. It takes the fucking bakery. It takes all the cakes. I am not a developer, and I know I should not be pulling the idiot card by saying, oh, well, they should have done this, they should have done that. But I'm going to pull the card anyways. Instead of having a few dozen, there are literally hundreds of collectibles. I did a quick Google search just to see like how many collectibles there are, and one of the links on the very first page was how collectibles ruined my AC4 experience, which actually made me chuckle a bit, made me laugh, because I think that's what ruined it for me when I played it the second time around, and it made my third playthrough for this review really difficult as well. In this game, there are two timelines, the modern day and the Edward Kenway timeline. In the modern day, there are sticky notes and computers you can hack for bits of info. In Edward's timeline, the collectibles are shanties, treasure maps, Animus Fragments, manuscripts, letters and bottles, Templar Keys, Mayan Stones, and just regular treasure chests. That's a lot. That list doesn't include side activities like assassination missions or synchronizing with viewpoints. Imagine that. That is a lot of collectibles to add time to your gameplay experience. A couple dozen makes sense, whatever. But there is too many of all of these things, and too many of them are way too much trouble to get, and that's from someone who actually got most of them in his first playthrough. The shanties are basically parkour challenges, and if you don't get them before they float away, you gotta wait to get them again. You have to wait a couple minutes. The controls aren't perfect either, like I mentioned before. Sometimes the controls get buggy, so chances are you'll fuck it up a couple times. The treasure maps are cool, I'll give them that. You go to the location, listed on the fucking map, the coordinates, and then you have to use the world around you to dig up treasure. These will usually yield a lot of money and potential upgrades for your ship, so that one's okay. Animus Fragments are quite possibly the worst collectible in the game, and I would feel rivals with the Riddler trophies in the Batman Arkham series in being like the worst collectibles of all time, because there's just so many of them, and you have to be in a specific location to get them. They're usually super high above you, and you have to dive down to get them. But if you don't angle your jump or dive correctly, you might miss it by like an inch, and you got to do it all over again. Manuscripts and letters and bottles serve as extra lore. So if you're really interested in the lore, those collectibles are for you. Templar Keys are only obtained after a certain number of side missions, and they're probably the best collectible, since they require doing side missions to collect these Templar Keys, and all these side missions actually have nice little cutscenes tailored for, said mission, said specific mission. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I think it's like 5 keys, which is a really good number. Just 5 keys? Fuck it. Mayan Stones are obtained by climbing old Mayan statues and then using your ego vision. They're basically just puzzles. And then there's just treasure chests that are just out in the open that you just open. Most of these are pretty easy to obtain, but that's not the point. The point is that there were so many of them. So here's me pulling the idiot card that I mentioned before. Game devs should have focused more on the core game, audio-visual controls, instead of adding a bunch of bullshit. There are literally, I am using the word literally collectibles on fucking random islands. You see that tiny patch of land over there? There's a collectible on it. You're gonna have to sail to it with no fast travel because, boats are so fucking fast. You're gonna have to park your boat, swim onto this patch of sand, get the collectible that wasn't worth all the time you just put into it, swim back, and get back to sailing. That really fucking irked me. It really, really pissed me off. Just seeing that I'm over here fighting enemies, afraid that I might fall through the world again, when instead of putting random bullshit on literally nothing islands, they could have fixed any number of issues.
You will soon pay for what you did to me.
There's no need to bother, really. I have no time to chill.
At the end of the day, the game is flawed, but it's got elements that make it fun. The parkour controls aren't polished, so sometimes Kenway will not go a certain way that is intended. Sometimes Kenway will get stuck on a ledge despite it not making any sense. One time I got stuck on a 4-foot wooden fence, and I was just pressing all the buttons on my controller, and Kenway just got stuck there. He was just staring like, yep. This is not an isolated incident. It is especially furious. It's especially infuriating, sorry. It's especially infuriating when you're chasing after people or shanties and Kenway just goes one way instead of another, or just doesn't respond to your controls whatsoever. But at least it is there, and when it goes right, it goes right. When it goes right, you look cool. I mean, the fighting of Assassin's Creed, like I mentioned, is fun when you fight a bunch of enemies at once and you finish them with some kick-ass counters. That's still here, but it's also flawed. Like getting stuck on a 4-foot fence, there will be times where you press something and Kenway just won't respond in time. It happens along with the desynchronization of the fight audio. But again, when you pull off a few counters in a row, you do look badass. When it goes right, it goes right. The naval gameplay, where you shoot at other ships, is no doubt the highlight of this game. So if you hated that part in Assassin's Creed 3, sorry buddy. Surprisingly, I don't recall any problems when it comes to this part of the game, up until you board another ship. Oh yeah, there is a problem with the fucking naval warfare. Sometimes when you're aiming, like, the camera will just cut to something you're not aiming at. It's really weird, but it didn't happen all that often. Something that's pretty cool about this game is that you sort of develop this weird relationship with the jackdaw, which is the name of your ship, in a way that I can only compare to... What could I compare it to? Your relationship with the jackdaw is almost like a guy with a tiny dick and a super huge custom truck. That's how I can see it. Because it's like, it's your, they're like, oh, it's my truck, it's my custom truck. Just like in this game, it's my ship. This is fucking my ship. And you'll learn how to maneuver it however you want. What? You'll learn how to maneuver it however you want, and as you upgrade it, with better armor and more cannons, if you're really immersed in naval warfare part of this game, you can't help but feel proud. I do have to admit that. And when I fucking upgraded my ship to the very, like, to the best of the best in my first playthrough, I felt proud. And that's probably the best thing I could say about this game, that feeling of, like, pride was evoked when I upgraded my ship, because of everything you have to do. Because at first it's just money that you need, and then it's materials and money, and then it's, you know, after that, for like the final upgrade, it's like money, materials, and you have to do a couple treasure hunts. You know what, now that I mention it, probably isn't worth it. Was it worth it? I don't think it was anymore. Now that I'm talking about it, now that I'm saying it out loud, I don't think it was really worth it. Sick. Anyways, those are the reasons why I gave this game the score I gave it, a 5.5 out of 10. It is odd that I didn't feel this way the first time I played it. Maybe because it was like, oh, you know, I'm playing a new game. But when I try to play it again afterwards, I felt like what I'm feeling right now, which is a weird mixture of being overwhelmed and disappointed. This game just feels more like a fan service than it does to a true sequel to Assassin's Creed 3. Or even, it doesn't even really feel like an Assassin's Creed entry at that point. So yeah, this game just feels more like fan service. The story doesn't feel right as an Assassin's Creed game, but it does make a decent pirate story. The character's not like the worst that I've ever seen. I mean, they're just simple. I think that's the big deal, that, you know, Assassin's Creed is really known for pretty big figures in their stories, and they didn't really have that in this game. All the big fucking, like, historical figures in this game were just way too simple, and to the point where they just weren't memorable anymore. So yeah, just sum it all up again. The visuals, audio, and the gameplay all have just an astounding number of bugs that really makes this game the definition of unpolished. I'm actually really surprised that the game was allowed to release in this state. It's just, like, I don't know how this game got released. Hey, we ready to launch? We need more time, sir. Is it playable? Barely, sir. You didn't say no. Launch it. Even more surprised that the game wasn't patched. So it's so weird, you know? I'm really surprised that the game just wasn't patched in all these years that it's been out. I played this a few months or so after launch, and I'm playing it a few years later in 2018, and it still feels like the same exact game. And that's pretty bad. I mean, all the problems I'm having today, I think I had back then as well. So that's a big deal. Would I recommend it today? Oh, man. If you're a fan of the series, and if you like the naval warfare or that interests you, I'd recommend it. Just because it really does keep the story going, apparently. If you just want to play a pirate game, I'd probably recommend it as well. Because the Assassin Templar story isn't... It's just shoehorned in there, so if you really just want to play a pirate game, I'm sure you can easily just ignore all that nonsense. Plus, I think today, this game costs almost nothing, and whenever there's a sale on PSN, because I'm a PlayStation owner, I don't know how it is on Xbox, but it seems to be sold for like nothing, with the season pass as well. It's like $10 these days when there's a big sale. So if you're looking for an Assassin's Creed game, you know what? If you're looking for an Assassin's Creed game to, you know, get your hook into the series, like this is gonna be your first entry, this isn't the one. I don't feel like this would be the one. If you don't like the whole pirate boat fighting thing, like if you didn't like that in Assassin's Creed 3, like I mentioned before, this game's not for you. Definitely not for you. So anyways, one last time, for the people in the back, for me, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag gets a 5.5 out of 10.
Can you feel it, Addy? We're moments away from the grandest prize of all.
I feel nothing but a hot wind in my ears, Captain.
Come on, man. When we take this treasure, we'll be set for life, all of us. 10 times over.
As you wish.